Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Armored Warfare replay. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today I have for you the Merkava MK1 Tier 5 main battle tank. And I am teamed up here with Last Requiem, who's running the VBL. He is a semi-regular viewer of my Twitch streams, so give the man a shout out here. So what we got here? We got the Merkava, Israel's true tank. Understand that up until the Merkavas were built, Israel relied a lot on other countries for tanks. They were relying on the British for Centurions. They were relying on Americans for M48s and M60s. They would get these tanks and they would modify the hell out of them and pretty much create new tanks out of what they were getting. They were also relying on captured tanks such as other captured Centurions, T-55s, and T-62s that they were capturing. Tank development for, well, first off, let's start with Merkava is actually Hebrew meaning chariot. That's actually a pretty good term for this vehicle, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The development of the tank began in 1970, and it would officially enter service in 1979. Oh yeah, look at that thick armor. But we'll get on to that too. Now the main part of the development was, if nothing else, crew survivability. So what you have here is you have a turret that's mounted a bit closer to the rear. The engine is actually mounted in the front with the driver off to the left of the vehicle. And the idea is the fighting compartment is in the turret. And the idea is if anything penetrates the front glacis, it's got to get through that engine and transmission first. I feel there is shortcomings to that. And mostly it's the fact that engines get hit. It could cause a fire. In a battlefield situation, if the engine does get hit and heavily damaged, you're an immobile tank, and basically at that point, you're an immobile bunker with a gun. But crew survivability was really important on this vehicle. The turret is in the mid compartment. What we have here, instead of an autoloader, it's actually a ready rack system. It's more or less, it's an autoloader type like system, I guess you could say. But it's an automatic feeding ready rack. It's kind of hard to explain how it works, but essentially what happens is that the shells keep feeding loaders in the U.S. Army. We call it the sweet spot. There are certain positions in the ammo racks of the M1 Abrams that is really easy to get to and makes for quick reloading. However, as time goes on and you expend ammunition, those sweet spots kind of go away, and it gets a little bit longer and longer to load the gun. So what you have here is you have a ready rack system. It's a system where the ammunition is fed on a type of carousel, and the ammunition is actually on him as he takes out a round. Ammunition automatically refills that slot. So think of it like a vending machine for a tank. Is the best way to put it. It is a 105 millimeter gun. It is actually an indigenous 105 millimeter gun. The Merkavas are still in service today. There was actually around 250 Mark 1s built, which would be the first mark of the Merkava. It weighs in at 65 tons. It is actually a very heavy vehicle. It is a composite type armor. However, some of the earlier, it was mostly actually homogeneous steel, but it was layered homogeneous steel to make a type of composite like armor. Now, the more modern ones has 120 smoothbore cannon. This is actually a 105 millimeter rifled gun, which would be based off the American M68 and the British L7s. The earlier models, I don't have the specs. I wish I had the specs in front of me. Here we go. Oh, I was actually incorrect. Okay. Let me correct myself. This version is not 65 tons. This version is 63 tons. It's later variants that are much heavier. However, it was powered by a 900 horsepower diesel engine, which kind of had a bit of a problem. One of the chief complaints, I did see some reports on one of the chief complaints about the earlier Merkavas was the underpowered engine. And they would slowly work on fixing that problem. There's actually a lot more to it. It actually has, you don't see it here, it actually does have an external 60 millimeter mortar, which I find that kind of hilarious. And it's got two 7.62 millimeter machine guns for air defense, which you don't see those here too, unfortunately. So yeah, very, very interesting. It borrows the tracks and the road wheels from the British Centurion, which, you know, they had extensive time with. And that's really, there's not a whole lot more I have about the vehicle. It would first see combat in 1982 during the Lebanon War, and they were actually a fairly successful vehicle. But I mean, like I said, they had shortcomings. One thing that was interesting too, and this is what I'll talk about with the whole chariot part, some of the ammunition can be removed, and that rear hatch, you can actually, if I recall, it's something like you can put like 4 infantrymen in there. So there you go, the chariot. In game, it's a tier 6 tier 5 main battle tank. It's pretty good. I really enjoy the Merkava. And it really kicks butt. That's all I can say about that. If you haven't tried out the Merkavas yet, definitely I highly recommend you try out the Merkavas. Anyway, so what we got here is I did 10,677 damage, 5 enemy vehicles spotted, 7 destroyed. I did take a little bit of a beating there from the Swain fires. Unfortunately, the meme fires are real. And what we get here is I was number 2 in damage, followed by the IT-1, which is another amazing vehicle I hope to do a replay on at some point. So yeah, there you go. Oh, and just so you know, that the whole spotting damage thing, I forgot this with the Schott replay. The spotting damage is actually glitched at the time of the recording of this video. So yeah, I didn't do 70,000 spotting damage. Not in a Merkava, although I do make jokes about Scout Merkava's best Merkava. I mean, it's a very tough nut to crack, especially the higher tier. When you start getting into the tier 8, the 9, and the 10, it becomes a very, very tough tank. Couple things I want to point out now. You know, I'm reaching the end of the video here, but some additional information. The tank does suffer from poor gun depression. That's what you get for mounting the turret towards the rear of the vehicle instead of towards the front of the vehicle or even the center. It does have a low profile. It's actually got a pretty good spotting range for a main battle tank. The front Glacius armor is very thick, but you don't want to get shot in the side because the sides and the rear is essentially paper, and just about anything will penetrate that. And when you angle this vehicle, don't angle it much. You want to give it maybe 10 to 15 degrees of angling, maybe 20 at most. But if you Any more than that, you start overexposing the side and you start penetrating. If you're a World of Tanks player, you're going to see the design of this vehicle, and the first thing you're going to do is do side scraping because, yeah, rear mounted turret, it should be good at side scraping. No, it's not good at side scraping. Actually, not many vehicles are good at side scraping in this game. The big thing is a lot of the vehicles, like the Merkava here, it's some ridiculous like 80 millimeters of armor, and that's just a number off the top of my head. It's pretty thin. But a lot of the guns you're looking at 300 plus millimeters of penetration with the Sabot ammunition that they fire. So don't ever side scrape in this vehicle unless you just want to just expose an ever a little bit of yourself and you have a way to keeping your hull side covered while you're side scraping. It's kind of tough to explain. I didn't really have a good opportunity to show what I'm talking about there during the replay, but there you go. There is the Merkava. I do highly recommend the Merkavas. The Merkava Mark 1 is actually pretty good. They actually recently buffed, it feels like they recently buffed the engine because it used to be so bad at climbing hills, but now it's actually pretty good. It's not the fastest main battle tank. It's far from the fastest main battle tank, but it's one of the better armored main battle tanks. So there you go. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the video. Remember to hit the like button and let me know what you think about these videos. I do like sharing the history, and I would like to keep doing it. But I mean, I got to know essentially where I can improve. Sometimes I get a little bit rambling, but here nor there. So anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I will hope to see you all again sometime.